And we are back. I've just watched episode 7 of Rings of Power. I feel like this was a step backwards in plot structure. We're back to the old strategy of jumping to many different plots. In fact, it might be the most egregious just because of the cuts itself. The opening sequence is about the fallout of Mount Doom and all of the destruction, and then it cuts to the Harfoots very cheerfully in walking into the grass. I know what they're doing is because it leads into seeing the Mount Doom destruction that happened to their grove, but just the cut is very jarring, and it keeps happening throughout the episode. That sort of we're in a scene and then we go to something completely different. We go to a scene, go to something completely different. That tonally it just breaks the momentum. I've been saying this for the whole show. Episode 6 was the one episode that didn't do this, but whatever. Okay, so on the Mount Doom destruction, the problem is most of the characters in that sequence can't die for plot reasons. There's this horrible destruction that we know won't affect them. I think the only named character that definitely died was Isildur's friend, who had seen enough of war. That guy, he's dead. They're pretending that Isildur's dead, which they're really stringing that along a long time. Like the episode ended and he's still not confirmed alive, which is weird because it's suffering from the prequel problem of anyone who has read The Lord of the Rings or seen The Lord of the Rings knows he's not dead. So that stringing that along is probably unwise. I think what they're doing is they're trying to do a sort of call forward, I guess, to the movie's portrayal of Aragorn being saved by the horse. You know, that sequence? There's a couple shots with the horse and Elendil that feel like a shot-for-shot redo of Aragorn and that horse that he befriends in the Two Towers movies. This keeps happening. I mentioned it last episode that they keep referencing the Lord of the Rings movies in shots and in images and in dialogue.
This wound needs elvish medicine.
He needs elvish medicine.
It's like, he needs elvish medicine. I feel bad at just how much I laughed at that. It's like, you want to be seen as your own thing, but you keep calling that back. I mean, even the Balrog. I assume, and I haven't seen the last episode, but I assume the Balrog doesn't come into play in this story. But they had to show it because they're like, oh, look, it's the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. Cut that out. That's not relevant. Save your budget. No, don't waste your budget on that. Save that and put that budget into making Númenor look like a world superpower that was so powerful that Sauron actually feared them. Let's do it. Let's do that. Yeah, Númenor. Okay. The Númenor Queen is still alive. We were joking while watching it that if she died here, she would have to be doing it while saving a bunch of people. But no, she didn't die, of course not. But she got blinded and by saving a bunch of people. I was like, I called that. I mean, I feel bad that I'm able to predict almost precisely that sequence of her valiantly saving people and then she gets injured. Goodness gracious. Very chaotically shot, that scene. I think that's what they're going for. Some of the shots in that were just a little too confusing because I think they made it look like Elendil and Isildur were together, but I don't think they were. This is Galadriel's best episode by virtue of her realizing that she has been too vengeance focused this whole time. People have been saying whenever I criticize her character that the whole point is her transitioning into who she will become and that this is her before that. I get that's what they're going for. Putting aside my opinions on it as a adaptation of a Tolkien character, putting that aside, right? Just the way they're doing that, I think it's both. You have to show a glimmer of who she will become so that it feels natural, right? But the entirety of the show is focus, and then she meets a kid that we have personal connection to because we've seen him the whole show, but she doesn't. This is a random kid who his drive for vengeance snaps her out. The drive for vengeance of some other character she has more of an emotional connection to. No. Just this random kid that she just met, suddenly, after all this time, she realizes it. And then she's like, oh no, we've got to be controlled. We got to be focused. And like says all these things. And it's a big change because of that one moment. Right? I think that arc feels both too sudden and too unnatural. It's just the person they're trying to paint her as is like someone who like realizing she needs to take it back, needs to be more controlled, needs to be more disciplined about her vengefulness. I personally don't like the flow of that just as a character arc, and this has nothing to do with my opinions as an adaptation of Galadriel, which I still stand by. I don't like it as a Galadriel adaptation personally. Kid almost exists as a plot device for people to have heart-to-hearts with. I mean, why is she having like this relationship with the kid when the person who really should be walking with him and having a relationship with him is Elrond? They're the ones whose relationship is being built up. He's the guy that should be giving advice to him because that relationship they've actually took the time to build up. There's something there but no, we were going to put it with Galadriel, who they don't have a connection with. It's not horrible. It's just I think it's wasted potential, just leaving that story with Arondir and him when that I think was a juicier dynamic to tap into. Another callback to the movies, Galadriel and the kid is hiding under this tree, and these orcs are coming up, shot very similarly to the hobbits hiding from the ring wraiths. It's so obviously a reference to that. Again, this keeps weakening the story by referencing this, because it just reminds you how it doesn't work. That scene with the hobbits and the ring wraiths, the hobbits were helpless. It was scary because if they were discovered, they're screwed. But in this setting, it's Galadriel hiding under a tree from a couple of orcs, and we've already established like 2 episodes ago that she can fight like 4 or 5 people at once, no problem. Even if intellectually you're like, oh, that's too many people for her to fight, that's why she has to hide. Emotionally, it does not resonate because in the back of your mind, subconsciously, you're like, she's fine. The worst thing that could happen is they get discovered and they have a fight. Whereas the hobbits were helpless. That's not a comparison that is good to draw, because it just reminds you that this is not, that the stakes are so much lower. Right? I think repeatedly referencing the movie is not doing it any justice. It's not. Just stop doing that. Halbrand is injured. He's injured, which means Galadriel has to take him to the elves.
He needs elvish medicine.
So now they're moving away from the Southland plot, I think. The Harfoots, there were some good things in there. It's weird how it's introduced, because the last we saw of Nori was her being really frightened by the stranger, and they don't really resolve. And then we start before that really has become clear. Like, it's clear what they're going for is like, oh, she's scared of him now, but they don't really give time or focus to that. So it just kind of feels like there's a missing scene there. Yeah, so he tries to grow a tree. They think he failed and is a danger to them. He walks off, but it turns out he regrew the whole grove, and now they're happy with him. And then the scary people that show up a couple episodes ago is there, and Nori confronts them, and that snippet was really good in tension, because when they set fire to those houses, I was like, oh, are they like, you're actually scared for them, because they totally could be massacred. And you feel that I liked that. I'm not crazy about the visual design of these people, but I like that sequence, that just snippet of moment, because it actually felt like, oh my god, what's going to happen? I like that. It was great. The speech Nori's father gives, and actually generally that whole sequence, there's a lot of almost narrative dissonance. He talks about how we all stick together and we help each other, and you're like, what? They were about to abandon you, and you knew that. So when they're like, he's like, we're Harfoots, we stick together. I think what they're going for is that they have become like this through this experience, that we will stand together, and that this is a character arc for this society. They start out as like this, but you don't really, the way it's worded doesn't feel like we have become this. It's more like we are always this, and that's so obviously false. And it rings false to the audience because you're like, no, you guys don't stick out for each other. They were going to steal your wheels. Like last episode, they're going to set up an expedition to go after the wizard, and then we get this talk of Malva, the person, woman Malva, who was pushing for them to take the wheels, who would like, and it's like admits like, yeah, I was wrong about the stranger or whatnot, and then in like 10 seconds later, in a different part of the conversation, the like leader Harfoot guy, he,
You know, Malva, just once, it would be grand if you weren't right all the time.
10 seconds ago, she admitted she was wrong. She's not always right. This is another moment where they say something that just screams untrue. And so it just feels a little off. It's like all this could work, but what they're saying feels untrue based on what has been shown. Just a little bit. And that really makes scenes that could have been very wholesome and very moving feel a little hollow because you don't believe it. So that's my stance on that. Well, then there's Elrond. Elrond scenes, I'm putting aside the intense lore issues with that part of the story, and boys, there are a lot of them. I'm intentionally not going to focus on that. As a story, a bunch of nothing happens, right? We're kind of at the same point that we started. The dwarves aren't going to give them mithril, and but Durin tried. I like the acting. Generally, the Elrond sequences with Elrond and the dwarves, the acting in that is up on the like best. Just the scenes, the character interplay. People actually have relationships with each other and they play off each other. Elrond and Durin, dialogue is a bit wonky, but I think the actors have a lot of on-screen chemistry. I like I buy their friendship. I think those actors really do sell that. His relationship with his wife, they have chemistry. Is one of the few instances where relationships like this are working. So I like that, but I just think the narrative doesn't really support what it has going for it. Right? It's the Durin and his father scenes, like hardcore acting and intense emotion, but we haven't had a lot of build up to this. Some of their scenes clearly were cut. It's a shame, but it narratively overall, not sure it's working. Then Elrond is back where he started. Going forward, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the finale is even going to work. There's so much, like the whole show, almost nothing happened. Like, are the rings going to get made in episode 8? Like in that episode? The dwarven friendship thing is kind of falling apart already before that's ever happened. Sauron hasn't even made it to Celebrimbor, and the Harfoot story is so unconnected to everything. So like, where's that going? That's not going to be connected in this season. So that we had this whole Harfoot thing never connects to the story except with the comet and the ball of fire from Mount Doom. Is that really its only connection? Narratively, and then Isildur is still MIA. They have to resolve that. So what? Where is this? How are you going to fit all of that in one episode and make it not feel rushed? Why is everything happening in the final episode when you had so much time? Because it felt like you were filling time for 5 episodes. So what? Why couldn't you have put it earlier? All right. Anyway, I look forward to seeing that just because I'm very curious how they structured that story. So see you on that one.